All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you and just like me. So, the present is something like this. All right, this is what we're living through. Bands that come out with albums and then they come out with more albums and people don't pay attention to it. Here is Sunstorm. This is their album from last year. It's called Afterlife. They're about to drop a new album in about 9 days. Okay. Now, if you like, say, Deep Purple with some Ronnie James Dio and some Rainbow and maybe a dash of Foreigner or Led Zeppelin in there, here you go. Sunstorm, Afterlife, Alessandro, my buddy Alessandro Del Vecchio. Nice Irishman, right? A nice Scotsman. No, Alessandro, fairly brilliant guy. I've had him on the show too many times. He probably shouldn't come on the show anymore, but I'll probably invite him when this comes out or the new one comes out. But here's the deal, folks, right? This is keeping the torch lit for this generation. I know a lot of people don't explore new stuff. You may not like everything I suggest either. There are a lot of different styles out there. Those guys are a bit more hard rocking. Their newer album plans on being a little more melodic and AOR-ish and not quite as aggressive, but either way, doesn't really matter. Really talented musicians doing original, newer melodic rock for your ears to enjoy. Now, as far as your ears, right, and enjoying the music of the past, I guess I've been inspired the last couple of days with all this talk about Lou Gramm and Kelly Hansen, Foreigner, what their future's going to be. Should they call it Foreigner? People, we've got to all come to grips with the fact that this music that we all grew up with is going away. At least the original guys are all going away. Either they're retiring, they're dying, which is unfortunate and sad and tragic, because there's this little thing called mortality that people in certain parts of the world aren't really coming to grips with, and they want us to all be some kind of new human species with the ability to transcend this stuff. And yeah, they're planning on maybe putting a computer chip in your head or something and keeping you going. You crazy conspiracy theorist, this is why I don't watch your channel. By the way, I have another channel. You can check that out for political stuff. There's a link. I did this interview yesterday with Scott Ritter, and I'm just putting it out there because the interview is kind of going viral, at least for me, on that channel. So check it out. There's a link on this channel to the other channel. Anyway, folks, the future of melodic rock and all of these bands that people love, whether it's Foreigner, Journey, the Guess Who. I've been talking to somebody about the Guess Who because it's kind of humorous. They do have one guy left in the Guess Who. But imagine going to see the Guess Who without Randy Bachman or Burton Cummings. That's sacrilegious, okay? It just is. But some people will still do it. Some people will go see the Guess Who. Do you know why? Because they know the songs, but they don't know the personnel. And this is something that rock bands and promoters and people who are trying to keep the legacy of something alive, blood, sweat, and tears, have toured for years with 0 original members. Robert Lamb from Chicago at one point said, we might become like Blood, Sweat, and Tears. We'll just put a team on the field and they'll play the music and hopefully they'll execute the music properly and people can, folks, this is kind of like Mozart and Beethoven and all of that. Think way back, right? So you've got these orchestras and you've got these composers. The composers are all dead. So now you've got orchestras. Eventually all of these folks are going to go bye-bye. It's unfortunate, again, unless they meld with the Borg and they are living forever. David Lee Roth, by the way, would be a great candidate for this. I could see him with a microchip. I really could. And I think he would be great. And you'd get to see and hear Dave from here, like through eternity, if you were living on planet Earth. And at that point, you might not want to be on planet Earth anymore if David Lee Roth continues to be alive for another 800 years or so. And look, the bottom line to all of this, it's not fun, but it is what it is. And I've talked about this a bunch of times. When people start to talk about this guy or that guy, like Kelly Hansen versus Lou Gramm, right? So I've defended Kelly Hansen. I've defended Lou Gramm on here plenty of times. They're both good guys. Nobody's the villain. Nobody's bad. If the villain is anybody, it's probably Mick Jones. But I think Mick is one of those guys who wants to hear perfection or wants to hear things his way. And if he doesn't hear it that way, he's going to make it be that way, and I think he's a pretty heavy-handed controller, and it's served him well. He's put a good product on the field, because that's how you need to think about it now. It's like a baseball team. It's the 2022 Red Sox versus the 2018 Red Sox, right? Did we lose a guy? Yeah, but we replaced him. We got a better infielder. We got better pitching now. Right? And so we have a better team. And a lot of people can't wrap their brains around that this is going to be the new way forward for geezer rock, as I like to call it, and even stuff that isn't geezer anymore. I mean, you got bands from the 90s that have like one original guy or two original guys. I mean, a lot of people are just like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like me going to concerts. Do I want to stand in line? Do I want to pay $300 for a ticket? Do I want to pay $30 to park? Do I want to drive an hour and a half and then get stuck in traffic? What do I want to do with my life that's going to be pleasant and is going to enrich my existence, right? Do I want to put myself through that? Because it's a little difficult. I mean, those people trying to go to Paul McCartney and they couldn't even get to the show, right? And everybody's like, oh, but it's Sir Paul. I got to go to, you didn't even get to the show. So I'm not sure what people think is going to happen moving forward. Is Mick Jones a thief? Is he doing something deceitful? Well, he's been doing it since 2005. So somebody should have called him out a little sooner, right? I mean, that's, again, my problem with all of this is all of a sudden, it's all of this criticism toward Kelly Hansen, Mick Jones. Mick Jones, by the way, his health is really going downhill. I don't know if it's a good idea to kind of kick somebody when they're down. And who knows how much longer Mick Jones will be here on planet Earth. What I would probably recommend is he stop making these cameo appearances at the shows and just say, look, I'm going to hand the reins over to these competent people. Was it Bruce Watson? All these people who are in this band who are great. By the way, I think Jeff Pilson is out. He was in, but now he's no longer a part of Foreigner. He was a member of Dokken. I'm not sure what he's up to these days, but that kind of gave the band a little bit more stature, having him in there. But I don't think people really care. I've watched the footage from 2022 Foreigner shows over in the O2 in London. Place was packed out. People were totally into the show. All these shows here in the USA, and even one coming very close to where I am. So who knows? Maybe I'm going to go see it. I don't know. I've never seen Foreigner. And is this really Foreigner? I don't know. It might not be. But for those of you who think that, hey, you shouldn't call it Foreigner anymore, you also got to think about the people who work for the franchise, right? It's like, hey, we got lousy players. Nobody's original. So we're not going to call it the Red Sox anymore. We're going to call it like the baby Red Sox, We're going to call it the polka dot Sox. And then people are going to like, I don't know. I don't think I want to go see that. I think they're going to suck. So I'm not going to go. With music, the branding, holding on to the brand means a lot. And I don't know how moral it is or upright, or is it ethical to call this Foreigner? Well, if you change members and you do it because you have to, what else can you do? Quit is the only other option, is just quit. And there are people out there that say, well, maybe they should just quit. And I'm like, I don't know. People's livelihoods are at stake. And there are people that want to go see. And you could say, well, it's the Foreigner experience then. It's not Foreigner. Well, you're not going to ask any promoter. You're not going to sell tickets or as many tickets. Now, there are tribute bands that do really well, but the reason the tribute bands do so well is because the original band is typically still out there and has outpriced the consumer, right? Has made those tickets so expensive that the consumer says, you know what? I'm going to go see, I'm trying to think of whatever, Reeling in the Years instead of Steely Dan. And there are other great tribute bands out there. Beginnings is a Chicago tribute band, and people are telling me this guy sounds more like Peter Cetera than the guy in Chicago who everybody in Chicago says sounds like Peter Cetera. And that's what's important to people. Does this sound like the band? Am I going to get entertainment? Am I going to break the bank? And people are making these considerations. Some people can't let go of nostalgia and they want a piece of the action. Prime example would be Kiss, right? Do you think Paul and Gene, when they're done, whenever that is, because this is the end of the road that has lots of, off ramps that the band doesn't take. It just keeps going down the end of the road. It's like a cul-de-sac. They keep going around. But they're going to go on for as long as they can. And then when they say, gee, I think we're done touring because we don't want to do this anymore, guess what they're going to do? They're going to hire a Paul guy and a Gene guy. And they're going to put Kiss out there, and they're going to get some of the revenue or a good chunk of the revenue, and those guys will get paid accordingly. And they'll make the show even bigger. They'll find a way to do more pyrotechnics, more hand grenades, all of the things that people come to see Kiss for, not necessarily their great catalog, because honestly, Kiss has kind of a so-so catalog. I mean, it's all right. I mean, maybe they need to dig a little deeper into those albums, and maybe they'll get a singer who can do that, right? Maybe they'll get a guitar player who can elevate the Kiss sound. And then people will be like, wow, this new version of Kiss is way better than the Paul and Gene Kiss. And guess what? Those guys are going to be happy because they're going to be walking to the bank and they're going to have lots of bags of money as they come out of the bank. So look, folks, it's a complicated issue. It's not easy to navigate. There's nostalgia here. There's the fact that people are getting older and they don't want to admit, when you can't do the things you used to do as a human, as an individual, same thing applies here. Well, I'm not going to admit that Paul McCartney sounds like crap. Really? You're not going to? I had people online during those shows. They were like, Paul sounds amazing. I'm like, I don't hear it. I love Paul McCartney, and it would be great if his voice didn't age since 1964, but it did a lot, and it's supposed to. And really, up until maybe 10 or 15 years ago, Paul was still on his game, but he's out there and everybody's singing with him and around him. And let's just kind of get through this show. Paul will put his voice out there so you get to hear him, but it's going to be kind of encapsulated with all these other vocals and special effects and cannons going off, whatever it is, live and let die. It's going to be a big deal. But it isn't the same. You go because it's a show. You go because, look, there's my hero. He's up on stage. He's an icon. He's a legend. I needed to see that. Probably not going to go anymore. That's what I would do. I'd be like, I've seen him. I don't need to go. I saw Paul McCartney, for instance, for real, back in 1989. I don't need to go see Paul McCartney ever again. Seriously. The people who want to go see him now are people that are, looking at their bucket list and they're like, okay, I want to see Paul McCartney. At the end of it all, people, we have to kind of deal with the fact that music, the way we know it, the way we love it, is starting to fade away. And because of the industry itself, nothing came along to really replace that or come alongside to kind of ease that transition. So that's why I'm always, out there talking about things like this, right? And I'm not saying this is better than the stuff that I listened to in 1982, but it will keep the torch lit. And then these guys will work at it and get it better and perfect it. And who knows, maybe someday radio will wake up again and it will give people some choices. You can play the old stuff, you can play the new stuff, give people a choice, also have faith in the fact that they won't change the station, because that seems to be their fear. At the end of it all, we're all just curmudgeons, right? We're all going to be curmudgeons that have our strong opinions. Just call it a day, foreigner. Call it a day, Journey. It's not Journey without Steve Perry. I get it. I totally get it. And you can have that opinion, and I can sit there and have an adult beverage with you and agree with you. The problem is, should they quit? Should they just go away? Should all those people just go unemployed? Should the concert industry for geezers just shut down? Because almost every band has a problem, right? Every band that's older, that came from the 60s, 70s, 80s, even into the 90s now, they're all having problems. So in any event, it just depends on you. Do you want to see it or don't you want to see it? And if you don't, that's fine. Your opinion is valid. Look, I'm trying to be very diplomatic here. My hardcore opinion on this is that these guys, because they have the contracts, because they have the franchise, they can do whatever they want to do. And they can go on for as long as they want to. Paul and Gene will go on until they die. And then they will pass it on to their offspring, who will also continue with Kiss, probably for another 100 years. We'll all be gone, and Kiss will be, they'll be, avatars or holograms or whatever. And we won't care because we won't be here. But those people, that's how they'll probably get the Kiss experience from, 1977 or whatever. It's really weird to think that way, but that's the future. And it's sad. We're in a transition phase. Kelly Hansen is just a transition phase. I mean, they can replace Kelly with artificial intelligence, and they might do that someday. So you should just be happy that you can go see human beings playing concerts, right? Because who knows? 10 years from now, I don't know if that's going to be a thing. Maybe it will be. We don't play concerts anymore. We've got the experience for you. Put on this headset. You won't have to go to the show. That might work for me. Although I'm not into this, artificial intelligence BS. At least I don't have to go anywhere, right? And deal with traffic and people, right? And I got to deal with people yelling at me. So yeah, that's my video, and I'm sticking to it. My name is Dave. Again, Sunstorm, new album coming out soon. This is their album from last year. It's called Afterlife. Give it a listen. Might not be your cup of tea. Hard rock and stuff. Rainbow, Deep Purple, Dio, and hardcore stuff. It's good. Alessandro, pretty smart musician. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.